when you know that even in the court, you cannot get justice? What sort of democracy brings you and you grab everything and then illegally, corruptly, and you say go to court, when you know that even in the court, you cannot get justice? So if democracy is not that democracy is failing, democracy is dying.
So you say, yes, it is failing. Why do you say so?
Well, if you look at what Bishop Cook has said, he said it's a work in progress. Let me follow my brother when he said about 1999. If you look at where we are today, it's like they started in 1999, laid the foundation. Some people came and took it to a decking, and some people were trying to raise it to first floor, and some people came and knocked everything down. That's the situation where we are now. Everything has been knocked down. Nothing works. And I'm somebody who can say this exemplarily. I became a governor through the court when President Obasanjo and Atiku were in government. I did not pay the court 1 naira. I was sitting in my house in the office, and the court declared me winner. When a governor is hosting them, it can't happen in Nigeria today. When I was being impeached, the president sent people to come and intervene on my behalf. Ken Nnamdi came begging house people not to impeach me. Today, the president impeaches the person. So that is the thing. So it's collapsed. So it's failed. They were begging my house not to impeach me. And they were PDP. I was in Abga. And they were begging. President was calling me and said, Peter, are you okay? Well, even when I was impeached, President Obasanjo called me and said, are you okay? Are you safe? When I go back from the court, when court eventually declared me under Andioba, President Yaradua called my phone in London and said, congrats. I said, President, I can't come back because, if I come back, these people, he said, tell me the flight in which you're coming back. And I told him, when I came, it's the first time military people came to receive me at the airport. I couldn't believe it. And took me straight to him. Now the president will ask me not to come back here again. So it's failed. Let's talk about how we are going to rebuild it. It's collapsing.
It is no longer deniable the fact that Nigeria is at a crossroads. If the former presidents and ex-governors would come to make such submissions that Nigeria is collapsing, that Nigeria is not working, that Nigeria has become a very destructive system that will not, of course, foster any progress, unity among its multi-plural ethnic nationalities. There is no economic vibrancy, buoyancy, there is no growth, rather retrogressive. The economy is retrogressive at the point of moribund, just as P2B submitted. Obasanjo, even the judicial system is in comatose, could no longer be trusted to dispense justice. Now, if the shrine of justice could no longer dispense justice, or what you call the courts of justice could no longer dispense justice, justice could no longer be guaranteed in the courts of law. What does that mean? There is no system, there is no country, because a country is based on the rule of law, principles. The Constitution is what defines a nation. Where the nation does not adhere to her own constitutions, does not dispense justice, unfortunately, they say, but it is no longer tenable, that the last hope of a poor man is the courts, is the judiciary. But that is not the case as far as Nigeria is concerned today. I'm not the one saying, you've heard it from the former president of Nigeria, expressing deep frustration and disappointment. The collapse of the Nigerian system is what they are telling the world today. It's quite unfortunate. P2B have made its own position. Olusegun Obasanjo have also expressed deep disappointment over the state capture, what he considers as a state capture, even when, of course, illegality is being upheld. There is no hope of getting justice at the courts. No justice. What difference does that make with the position of Nnamdi Kanu? This is the reason that informed the agitation for the restoration of Biafra. Now, what they are saying indirectly is that Nnamdi Kanu was absolutely right. His description or perception about Nigeria was absolutely 100% correct. Describing Nigeria as a zoo, according to Nnamdi Kanu, that is just what Obasanjo, of course P2B, was buttressing this moment. He said that Nigeria has collapsed. You can't get justice. It's almost impossible. It's impossible to get justice from the courts. Citing the 2023 election, they ask you to go to courts. Why you know there is no justice anywhere known as court within the Nigerian legal jurisprudence. I think it's incumbent on the judiciary to clean up, of course, themselves over this public perception. It's quite a ridiculous and very unfortunate one. So what have they said different from what standpoint of Nnamdi Kanu? Indirectly, they are saying that Nnamdi Kanu is right, and those calling for the agitation of the restoration of Biafra is in tandem, is in the right track. That is a nod, of course, to the agitators. Because if the country has collapsed, will you allow that to collapse on everyone? Having seen that the country is on the path of retrogression, on that path of total collapse, they decided, of course, to move on so that it does not collapse on humanity, in order to save humanity. This is just a position that since 1999, instead of Nigeria having consistent development, improvement on the administration of governance to the people, delivering of democratic dividends to the people, rather what we are seeing is the reverse of the order. So who do you have to blame if there is lawlessness, if there is no check and balances, if the executive believe they have the right, absolute right, power to lord it over in a democratic setting, where you usurp the right, the mandate of the people? No wonder you never cares what happens to the people. You hijack the mandate of the people, you disrupt the democratic process, and entrench the military rule, dictatorship. It is quite horrible. When Jonathan was in power, he declared state of emergency in Borno State, but he did not remove the governor. He did not remove the deputy governor. He did not remove or dissolve the House of Assembly, the State House of Assembly of Borno State. He empowered the military to go, of course, to declare war against those disrupting the peace of the society, of the state. What Tinubu would have done is to call Wike to order. Go back and fix the state. Don't constitute, of course, anything that will endanger or disrupt the public peace or incite people. You should have cautioned him, and that would have deterred him from further, of course, escalating the situation. But rather, you harbored him and you did whatever you want to do because you feel it will be in your own interest. I don't know why, sorry to say this, but that is the truth, my observations. Why the Yoruba political elites are so engrossed, so selfish, so power drunk. The same Obasanjo condemning, of course, the current administration sought for third term, if not that Senator Ken Nnamdi stopped him from such a move. Yes, at that minute, Senator Ken Nnamdi, being the Senate president, insisted that no, the law must have its court. You can't distort the law or change the rule at the middle of the game. You are only meant to serve for 2 terms. So why are the Yorubas so power drunk, intoxicated, and haven't given the opportunity to serve? They worsen the situation, they kill the economy, they destroy whatever is surviving. It's quite unfortunate. It was never like this when Yar'Adua, being a Fulani man, though Buhari was an exception, of course, to this rule. Even as worse as Buhari is, the country wasn't like this. The country was bad, but not as worse as it is today. In terms of compliance to the rule of law, it is abysmal. In terms of economy, in terms of democracy, security, it is the worst in the history of Nigeria. The inflation, of course, rate or index is unbearable. Nigerians are just captive for air. So all these things is buttressed to the point of position why Nnamdi Kanu was advocating for the organization of this country. So if the country is not working, if you cannot, the judiciary cannot dispense justice, so what a country? How do you describe such country? No, in the light of current realities, how do you describe such a country? Do you call it a country or a nation? Or the cacophony of animals, where there is no rule of law, where there is lawlessness, where everybody does what he or she feels, of course, protect his own interests and instinct, and of course, without any recourse, without considering the implication or impact, negatively impact it might have on the people or the rest of the citizens. Is quite unfortunate. It is not a surprise that Goodluck Jonathan also condemned such as that act. Wole Soyinka also lent his voice to such, but the problem is systemic. Unfortunately, it seems there is no hope, because if everybody is crying, lamenting, raising their alarm and their voices, it means something is fundamentally wrong. And who is going to fix it? This informs the reason why Nnamdi Kanu said no, it is irredeemable. The only way forward is to preserve the heritage and prosperity of the Eastern people by way of restoration of the lost sovereignty of the Biafran state, which today Obasanjo P2B is a witness to the fact that Nigeria is collapsing based on their statements and position expressed today. Without knowing it, they are giving nod to the Biafran agitation. And of course, they can't deny the reality. Their words, of course, is an evidence to the fact that Nigeria is on the path of irredeemability, except something drastic is done, or except some drastic actions or steps is taken. Then who will take that step? As long as we're still living in the world of fantasy, of deception, believing that nothing is happening, it doesn't matter, they don't care, provided it is not directly affecting the politicians. They have money to throw around, to share around, just as Obasanjo insisting that each senator collected 200 million naira for whatever reasons. It's quite unfortunate. The constituency project is not accounted for. You begin to ask, what is happening in this country? The endemic corruption, of course, lawlessness, and no regard for the rule of law, the impact of the people, the feelings of the people are not being considered in policy formation and implementation. And as such, Nigerians are wallowing in deep abject poverty. You cannot agree with this submission that the only antidote to saving and preserving humanity is the disintegration of this country. If the likes of Obasanjo, P2B, and the rest of them could come out and say things are out of hand, things are getting more worse than ever envisaged, then what do you have to say? Let's have your own take regarding this development. Could there be any salvation for Nigeria, or coming from anywhere, apart from the disintegration of this geographical entity called Nigeria?